Mr. Rasnick. New Kent County, Ms. Guthrie.
Present.
Mr. Moyer.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Powers. Mr. Ciriello. City of Richmond, Mr. Bunn. Chair Erickson. Ms. Allman. Mr. Smith. Chamber RBA, Mr. Easter. NAACP, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Willis. League of Women Voters, Ms. Weisiger.
Here.
Ms. Rosenblum. RABA, Mr. Burnley.
Here virtually.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton. Office of Equitable Transit and Mobility, Ms. Rowan.
Here.
Thank you. RBA Rapid Transit, Ms. Walker. Mr. Hankins.
Here.
Senior Connections, Mr. Williams. Virginia's for High Speed Rail, Mr. Testerman.
Here.
VCU, Mr. Leonard.
Here.
Virginia Conservation Network, Mr. Gordon. And Ms. Higgins. That concludes the roll call for attendance.
Okay. Next, an approval of the July 20th, 2023 meeting notes. Can I get a motion? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the meeting?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
All right. Do we get a second? All right. Approved. Thank you. Does anyone have amendments for the agenda? All right, open public comment. Is there anyone who would like to say anything?
We didn't receive any requests for, or public comments or requests to speak.
Okay, excellent. The chair's report. I don't really have anything to report, but I'm looking forward to a wonderful meeting with the new public engagement person here at Plan RBA. And it looks like we don't have any updates either from our TPO and CTA.
I was gonna
Oh, you got
offer,
that.
sorry.
Let's do it.
I'm here in Miles Bushing's stead, who has been recently appointed as the RRTPO secretary, now with Chet moving over to the CDTA. So the only thing I did want to call attention to the fact that we are reconvening the public transportation work group, which is going to be looking more at more detail in the rural or smaller localities at transit. You know, ideas, and this is very pertinent to our topic today, ideas that might expand or enhance a micro transit option. You know, other ways that we more just a bigger range of ideas that we can look at in the rural community. So and Ken is heading this up as far as convening the public transportation work group. So we're looking at meeting sometime towards the end of October, the week of October 23rd. So I just wanted to make you aware that that is happening, and would love to keep you all informed as that moves forward. Yes, Sarah?
Does that include Petersburg or just the counties?
Just ours, our smaller counties along with Ashland and Hanover as well. Yes.
So the city of Richmond, we are wrapping up a microtransit study that's looking at a few different zones that do go out into Henrico and two of the zones pretty significantly. So if you would like us to come present those results of what we've looked at, we'd be happy to.
I think as we kick it off and define what is our scope, and you know, there's also funding available for planning and demonstration work through DRPT, so they'll be at the table as well. So glad to know that, Kelly. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's get ready to speak up just a little bit for a couple of members who are having a little bit of a hard time hearing.
Yes, if you're going to speak, please speak up. We have had a request for everyone to up the volume a little bit.
Could you hear down there, Mr. Testerman?
A little bit of it, yes.
Yeah, I think the,
Project, there we go, that was a little louder, good,
Okay.
yes. It also carries from here better, there's a
Yeah.
clear
yeah.
sound bubble that is
Than if
easier
you're
for
on the
us,
side,
but on the
yeah.
side, I think it's a little
Yeah.
harder.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Does this also include Caroline County? Because I know that's also a rural area as well.
It does not, they are not in our region, but.
Do any other updates before we move on to new business? Cool, well, with that, I'm gonna give it over to Holly Gordon, the Community Engagement Manager, to discuss kind of the role of public engagement and responsibilities that we've been sort of talking about.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Gordon. I'm the brand new staff member to Plan RVA. Actually, it's not true because Ellen is secondarily brand new. So Ellen Cook is here and is also a new staff. She's our project manager and she's just observing, I think, and trying to figure out what we're all doing, as am I, because I'm now on, what, is it week 4 to this position? So I'm very excited to be in front of all of you and to see some faces, to go with names. As a little bit of background on me, I am new to this role, but I'm not new to community engagement or communications or capacity building in the region. I've lived in the Richmond region 20-some years, have spent a lot of time working specifically with the nonprofit sector in capacity building, but also doing small business, bike tourism, communications and operations for primarily small business tourism. So I love that this role gets to connect us to so many things, and I care very much about community engagement. And so I want to take this next section to just, get to know you all a little better, and also do some brainstorming about what we want this new form of this committee to look like. As you all know, our TPO board approved the new, improved and expanded role of the CTAC to be more engaged in community engagement, which is great because it doesn't work with one person alone. It only works with all of your both locality representation, but also the causes that are near and dear to your hearts. And so as a bike person, I know that biking is near and dear to my heart, and there are some other things that overlap with that, but ultimately we're all here for the resilience of Richmond and the region. So thank you for being here. If you will just turn your attention in the booklet here to page 9, which has essentially the new public engagement roles and responsibilities. And this isn't new to you. You all helped develop this before I even got here. But just kind of giving you the big picture of what the vision and long-term tasks look like for how we're going to engage the public on some of the requirements that we have. And then if you look on page 10, it talks about both with long-range transportation planning, short-range transportation planning, and then just general outreach, so that we are using the people in this room, you that care about this work, to be visible in the community as well, because we need all of us to make a visible community and have people feel like that their input is actually heard. So that gives you just a little bit of an overview if you need a refresher, basically 9 through 11. I'm gonna point you to the public engagement plan on 12, but not talk about it just yet. Because the public engagement plan was approved, 2020, I think? Do we remember when that was? Which has kind of what we have been tasked to do. And so if you have not spent good, deep time reading through this lately, that might be some good homework to do, to just become familiar with it and find out where in this plan you see yourselves and your organizations. But what I'd like to talk about today, and I will lean on my coworkers here because I haven't done this in a meeting before, is I want to hear from us what you think we want to do with this new committee. I want to hear just very kind of casually about what do we want to accomplish when it comes to public engagement? Where do we need to go to do that? Who's not at this table that needs to be? And how do we ensure that this process is equitable as we go through? So that's a whole lot of questions I just gave to you. But I just wanted to pause for a moment and say, does that feel like a kind of a casual conversation that we can have for the next 5-10 minutes, just talking about what do we want, who's not here, and what do we want to do to make this process equitable going forward? Does that feel like a good combo? Yeah? Can I get a thumbs up? Awesome, thank you. So I'm gonna pause for a minute and just ask Barbara and Ken and Sarah, do you all have any thoughts on other questions that we should be talking about right now?
I think that works. If you're from a locality specifically, I know that seems maybe like a daunting tasked to sort of do the public engagement,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you have ideas or
Yeah,
questions.
or any history that you feel like is important for me to know about the ways that we've done things. I know that we're asking big questions right now, so if you wanna start small, that's okay too. But mostly I just wanna hear, what do you care about? And then I also want us to identify who's not here, because I know we've got some vacancies, and I would love for it to feel truly representative, so if, if there's anything we can do as individual humans or people in localities, if we've got friends with other localities, to be like, hey, how come no one's on this wonderful engagement committee that we have? Let's invite them here. So I'm gonna just be quiet for a minute and let anybody who wants to chime in to the answers of any of those thoughts.
So basically, I lived in Ashland for about 5 years just because I went to Atlee High School. And so because I didn't really have a car for so long, just because the car that I did have didn't work that well, I wish I just had a way of getting around to parts of Henrico and Richmond. But since I didn't have a car and since the bus didn't go out besides the express bus that goes to King's Dominion, I just wish I had some form of transportation that was public transit that could get me to go to parts of it. So I was hoping that Plan RVA or Phil that would be able to connect parts of it. So that's good to hear.
Great. And Alex, can you remind us who you're with?
With Kelly.
Okay, which is the Office of
With Office of
Equitable.
Equitable Transportation and Mobility here.
Thank you.
So Alex is one of our lovely interns, they are focusing on outreach.
And we have two other interns too, who I'm sure you'll meet at some point, who are more focused on the planning side of things. Alex is also doing planning at BCU. So I have lots of thoughts. I'm an over talker, but I'm just gonna start. Who is missing in this room? It is all white people, except for Alex, and that's kind of a big problem. I think if we're saying that we're gonna be representative, that, we can be intentional in making sure that we have, different races of people, different ages of people, differently abled people. I know we've made sure to include a couple folks that use a wheelchair full time in some of our focus groups, and some of the stuff that they told us is just stuff I had not even thought of. There's challenges, and the same thing, there's way less visible barriers that people face if they're low income or BIPOC, or there's a lot of different statuses that we can have as a Richmonder that can create barriers, and that we don't understand it if we aren't living it. And so to not have that represented is difficult for me. That would be my number one thing. Number two thing would be that if we want community representation of not just middle class and upper middle class, that we should pay people to come. That's what we found in Richmond Connects, at least, that we're all paid to be here, and we're asking somebody that's just a regular citizen to take a day off from their job. You get paid if you do court duty. I mean, you should get compensated. That's people's intellectual property you're asking them to give away for free. And I would also say, just a general engagement approach I would like to see the region embrace more is the come to the people, not the people come to us. As much as we can, go down to the, eatery, or go down, where people already are. We don't need them to come to us. Those are my three big points.
Thank you, Kelly.
Lisa's got a comment.
Holly.
For the past couple of years, we have really tried to have more representation on CTAC. We have deliberately sought out counties that have not participated, not to call out everybody, but certainly Charles City doesn't have an alternate or representative. I don't think Henrico does either at the moment, so continue the effort to involve them, to be represented on this board. But beyond that, come up with a plan where the CTAC representative, whether it's for a local government or whether it's for an organization that participates, to come up with a plan to have listening sessions either with their constituency, if it's like transit with your office, Kelly, or in New Kent County, you know, work with us and we work with the Board of Supervisors and set up a listening session that is maybe, you know, a part of some other reason for people to come together. You know, not part of the supervisors meeting, but to have something where you actually hear from people about where you live in the county and what you want to do in terms of microtransit or whatever these other things are. We're just guessing at what people want. We actually have not heard from them. So coming up with a series of listening sessions, I think, would begin the process of identifying the voices that need to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Well,
Sorry, oh, hold on, I do believe that. Yes, in the green, sorry, tell me your name one more time, I can't read your name tag.
Sarah Wisiger.
Hi, Sarah, thank you.
I don't have a list of 3 things, but it's maybe 3 things that, I think whatever you can do to demystify planning, and I really particularly care about transit planning for the region, because, a lot of, I work with illegal women voters who are very interested in transit, especially for people to get into jobs. I also have a short-term gig with RVA Rapid Transit. And in both situations, I'm telling people how to kind of interface with these decisions. And what happens a lot is people will say, oh, well, GRTC, we can't do anything about that because it's the counties that have to, you know, pay for something, or the state money that, and so it's this, it's not just that people say it's not us, it's, you know, ask your county representative, but it's that kind of thing. So if there was a way to kind of untangle that, I know it's so complex, but it's the complexity, I think, that makes it really hard to interface with this organism, with the TPO. I mean, it's just, you know, and so like if somebody called here and they said, I would love to see the region reworked so that there's a lot more bicycle pedestrian opportunities and transit and less high-speed arterials that go everywhere. I mean, what would they do? There's nobody to call and say, you know, well, it's so project-oriented. Oh, I'm not gonna start ranting, but it can be so project-oriented here, you know, that, you know, just that we're all working on a project, and even though you do long-range planning, so much of what happens is this, you know, projects and a list of projects. And I guess anything you could do to demystify, and then people who wanna participate in these bigger, weightier things, but are coming to it as beginners, how do they get there without having to spend a huge amount of time? That's all.
Thank you. So I think maybe Alex and then Richard?
Also piggybacking off of what Kelly said, my also concern is like, one, as far as like with diversity goes, like one, is this also gonna like, my concern is like with any planning project, is it gonna like not, my hope is that it's not gonna further gentrification and push people out of communities that were already there for like decades upon decades, because that's my primary goal as a urban planner, is I want to end gentrification, not further promote it. And then 2, I also, people are not only English speakers, we also have to make sure we, with these planning, with what we're putting out here in Plan RVA, we're like have someone who speaks Spanish or someone who speaks a different language. So also like help provide resources for people whose first language isn't English as well. And then as far as like the bicycles, not everyone is able-bodied. So one of my other concerns is, are there's like maybe bicycles for people who use a wheelchair as well.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
You'll see more of it in the presentation, but we really try to be a rider-focused organization, and so one way that we start all of our board meetings, Sarah and our other transit ambassadors will actually go out and canvas and talk to bus riders, and we'll actually play 2 oral comments to kind of frame the message. And so like I'm so focused on majority Richmond and kind of urban fixed route transit, but I don't, you know, like when I heard Alex's story of like feeling a little maybe not getting to where she needs to go up in Ashland or a more rural community, that would maybe help me understand it as a region versus being so locked into jurisdiction or organization.
Okay, helpful. Thank you. And I know that I'm asking big questions here and I appreciate your input, and I'm hearing some themes, and I just also want to note that we're probably not going to solve all of these things today, and that's okay. I think sometimes it can feel overwhelming that we are being tasked with so many big important things, and that's okay, and we're going to work on those, but we don't have to do it all today. And so I want you to know that I hear your feedback and that's valid, and I know that many of you have been working on this a lot longer than I have, and so I want to honor that history, but also think about how we might do things differently, right? New staff change, new responsibility change is an opportunity potentially to do something new and different, and I'm a fan of trying new and innovative ideas. Does anyone else have any thoughts, Kelly?
I just have another thought too on the simplifying, I think Sarah was talking about, simplifying messaging. I'm gonna give an example. Fall Line Trail. Each county and each city has their own little section on the Fall Line Trail on their website. I know, I made the city of Richmond's story map for it, looking at the regional and everybody else's for information, but was asked to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I remaking this on our website? This is already on, the regional websites, but I would love to see how you take on a leadership role in coordinating messaging between the counties and the city, and we're all working on a unified project. From the outskirts, if you're a citizen, you're like, I don't know where, it's everyone's got a different thing, and then there's 17 news stories on this piece and that piece, and if it was something that unified when we're doing collective projects, that would be really cool.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Transportation folks in the back, I'm looking at you. Anything from high-speed rail or VCU or any of the other localities? I'm also just trying to look at name tags, get to know everybody.
I had a couple
Yeah, Sarah.
comments. So, yeah, I think when we were trying to talk about this role, and I know Lisa did a lot of work to trying to figure out a productive role for this board. But yeah, do we feel like it would be good to have because the term, through the term, maybe your role entails that you do X amount of tabling sessions or listening sessions, or you kind of attend a few events, and then also folks from localities. What I want to know is being from city of Richmond, there's a whole list of citizen boards and things that I would love to get out, an email, what you were saying. There's maybe a common message that we can all send to those folks when there are important comment periods on transit projects, because a lot of the times people don't know about those, they don't know how to engage with them, they have no idea what's happening. And then to kind of connect that way. I also do agree that noon on a Thursday, you got to be working in transportation or not working, right? Or different shifts, if you're gonna attend this meeting. So I do feel like it's perhaps a tall order.
Right. And are there ways that we could acknowledge that reality without having to change everything, right? Are there ways that we can get input in some ways and then have meetings that are like this in other ways, right? Because I think it does feel overwhelming to think we have to get everybody at every meeting, and that sometimes feels impossible. And so how can we make sure that we have lines of information coming in and going out that meet multiple needs?
Or just pay people to have it at the same time and just say, we'll give you a $100 gift card if you come.
Alex?
My only thing is as far as sending an email, not everyone, including the elderly, including homeless people, have an electronic device. So an email is a good idea, but how are we gonna get that message to people if they don't have a phone or a computer? Should we just maybe send out flyers instead?
Yeah. So thinking about access outside of electronics.
I would add that too, that we did that with Richmond Connects and had to do, I was just looking at the stats today, to get portions of Southside, more than 50% of the surveys that we collected were the paper surveys. We got 4,000 responses from one of the areas in the downtown,
to get 300 responses, we had to use a month and a half of, you know, Alex and Shanice and our outreach people being on the ground with a paper survey. I mean, like tooth and nail, getting people, you know, it's gonna cost 10 times as much to get that one voice, but we can't think of it in that way. Like, you know, well, it only costs 37 cents to get someone to do it online. Well, and it costs $52, you know, however you want to do the math, but it's like, it's worth it because we have to have those voices captured. We can't just keep saying, well, they didn't do it, you know, like, well, we didn't try hard enough.
Because their voices matter too.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think like what I was thinking a little bit more was like a big phone tree, you know, sort of thing. So you get it to certain organizations or people who regularly communicate with those folks, you know, who are providing social services or something like that, like, and those sort of go down. And because I don't think that this board can communicate with everyone in the metropolitan area.
Right.
Like, but if we can devise a system and then your next representative, say you're from a locality or whatever organization, you pass that on as you move on.
That'd be awesome for the localities too, when we have stuff to share.
Yeah.
Holly, one of the challenges that I find is we have a semi-phone tree set up. And I can put together information and share it through a variety of channels at VCU and get it to thousands of people. The challenge I have is figuring out what I give them. Often, if there are surveys that come up, I can share with them in brief fashion a link to the Plan RVA survey or whatever, especially when we're doing the long-range transportation plan. If there are longer term activities like what's happening over the next 3 months so that people could anticipate and maybe get engaged, a 1 or 2 page, I hate to say newsletter, but something that provides issues on the ground maybe and opportunities for engagement so that they don't have to respond directly, but if you find or we have needs for outreach or input that would tickle their fancy, because we've got a wide variety of people working at VCU, I can get that out on a regular basis to that network. And then I participate in meetings with the administration at VCU and get some sense of what their plans and preparations are, and I can bring that back. But the bottleneck that I've seen is sifting through all the material that I receive at this meeting and trying to package something that I can share that touches the community that I'm trying to share the information with.
Holly, following on what John said, in addition, not to replace the listening sessions and actual face-to-face, because I think that's important. Every county puts out some type of newsletter to its citizens. So, let's say in New Kent, you have a QR code that maybe the county administrator can put out in the newsletter and say, we want your input on X. And we need to know you want A, B, or C. You know, something fairly simple, and put a QR code for New Kent in the New Kent newsletter, the one for Hanover in the Hanover newsletter, and begin to at least push out some simple questioning and some background on the most important topics. They're not gonna read a whole bunch of stuff, but something to link to.
Playing off of that, even an aggregation document that had all the QR codes, because VCU is a huge employer, and we have people that live in these different counties, but may not be getting the information from those channels. So just including QR codes from the other newsletters could be a simple way to spread this information out and get it to the community in a different channel.
Andrew Bunn online wants to say something.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, I want to, so it sounds like a lot of this has been focused on ways that this group can further the amount of representing that it does and the different types of people whose voices can be heard through this group. Are we also discussing ways that like what this group does with that information? Because I would hate to put a lot of thought and time and effort into making sure that we represent a lot of people effectively and then not have outlets for that representation. And like it should be clear, and I'm sorry about the dog, if you can hear her. I think it should be clear to people if they're going to engage through us or with us, what we're going to do with that, like what the role at the other side is.
Explain where this board sits in the trigger points.
And maybe that's something you can help. 'Cause Andrew, my first answer to that is, yes, of course we will do that, because I feel like there are so much opportunity for input that we need, that it's not a matter of their input's not going to someplace good, but maybe we need to make sure that we're sharing back what we did with their information. What I thought you were going to ask is, are we creating space for people and then not actually giving them something to do? So I think we're talking both about this group, but also how do we reach the public? And so those are maybe two aligned conversations, but Ken, I don't know if you want to speak to.
Andrew raises a good point, and you know, the process is so complex, and I think part of it is maybe we need to step back, and sometimes we assume that everybody knows how the process works. And I think that we need to continually educate stakeholders and just the average Joe about how the process works and what's in it for me and how does it impact me. You know, and then I think that the input hopefully becomes more relevant. I think Andrew raises a good point though, is we probably need to document when we receive these comments, what happens to them. What types of comments do we receive? How do we catalog it? How do we use that? What is it applicable to? You know, what is its relevance to the process?
Yeah, well, and it looks like we did that, or y'all did that, in the public engagement plan, right? Because at the back of it, it has the public comments, and then the staff's response to that, and so I think that is helpful to show, we heard you and here's our response to that.
Yeah, and that was just for one element of, you know, that was for comments on the public plan.
Right.
You know, so
Comments on how to engage us,
Yeah, so
Right.
you could broaden that to, you know, comments on development of the transportation improvement program, the long-range transportation plan itself, the allocation of the dollars on some of these various programs.
I was gonna add that made me think of something else that would be amazing and probably like a fairly lofty goal, but something that you can facilitate, Holly, is that scrubbing that information of identifying stuff and then sharing it with each other. Like when we started Richmond Connects, I mean, we went back and got the master plan team to send us all of the comments that had to do with transportation. You know, we use our path to equity outreach as well. Like, but what if I could have said, hey, Plan RVA, what do you have comments in the last 5 years that you were doing on planning processes, you know, around regional transit or around, you know, whatever questions, and we could have incorporated that. Because that's one thing I will say that Shanice, our outreach coordinator, keeps saying is like, people are like, I have told you. I have told you in the last 6 surveys that I filled out, they don't see the difference in like who's asking and what it's for. They just see, I keep telling you, I almost get hit at this intersection and no one's listening, you know? And so like if we could share that information, that would be great between all the different planning processes.
Yeah, great point. So I just want to be sensitive of time, because I was not keeping track of how long we've been talking. I feel like we're getting close to the wrapping up of my section, yes?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we've got some good information to start here. And,
Yeah.
maybe we can kind of synthesize it and sort of report back to the group at a future meeting what we heard. And we can sort of assess what we heard and what we recorded is what has been expressed.
And I was just gonna say, this is a perfect opportunity because next year we will be launching the Long Range Transportation Plan 2050. And this will be the first step, is revising this public engagement plan. So all your thoughts that you expressed today and going forward, listening sessions, a great idea. We tried to do all that through our long range transportation plan, which was during COVID, so it was not as robust as we would like. We continue to, through our modal plans with bike ped, and we're also upgrading our
website for that so that it's more current and vibrant and active with new, what's happening and ways you can be involved, new surveys. So all of that to say, this is a great time to be doing this.
Okay, thanks everyone, this is a great discussion. Next we have a presentation from RVA Rapid Transit on the state of transit.
All right, hi everybody. So my name is Richard Hankins. I'm the Programs and Communications Manager with RVA Rapid Transit. Our Executive Director, Faith Walker, could not make it, and for good reason. She was gifted a trip to Portugal, so I'm very happy for her. But that's why she's not here today. So we're just gonna kind of cover who we are as an organization, kind of the state on where we want the buses to go, frequency, also the state of bus shelters, benches, infrastructure, stuff like that. And then finally, one of our pillars is elevating riders' voices, which feels like a very fitting segue from our earlier topic.
It's gonna change. Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is very new. So about just a little bit about who we are. And I did give you guys all a copy of the report. It doesn't follow like 90% page by page, just so you guys, some of the maps can be a bit hard to see from a distance, so I think everybody has a copy in front of them. So as far as who we are this is now page 3, we are dedicated towards educating, organizing, and advocating for frequent and far-reaching transit. In the Richmond region, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. GRTC does not pay our bills. We are independent from the regional, city, state governments, all of that. And so our primary goal is to just demonstrate to people why we think vibrant public transportation is so important. Cool, all right. Thank you, Sid. So we have 3 pillars to our work. The first one is more buses, more places. And so we believe that frequent and far-reaching transportation really helps people just live their best life. I think Alex's example earlier, that should you have had just great bus service, you would have been able to enjoy your time more when you were living up there. The second one is dignified places to wait. Nobody should have to wait in the rain, in the elements. I mean, we've interviewed, talked to bus riders who were elderly and, they lived in a senior living complex and their bus stop didn't even have a bench. This woman just wanted to sit down, and I think that's very reasonable to ask. The third one is elevating riders' voices. We want to talk to bus riders. We don't want to just get on our high horse without understanding what that constituency wants, and we have 3 transit ambassadors that we've hired, including Sarah. She's wearing a different hat right now, but she is one of our transit ambassadors for RV Rapid Transit. And you guys will actually intersperse throughout the report. You guys will hear from 6 different bus riders just on different facets of transit in Richmond. As far as the benefits of transit, it's multifold, kind of falls into 4 big buckets. Transit provides access. Not everybody can drive a car. That could be through financial, disability, or a personal choice. And we believe that having good transit connections and access is vital for particularly urban and suburban communities' livability. And then also I learned a very insane fact that downtown Richmond, in between Belvedere and the expressways, there are no less than 48,000 parking spots. And that's just a lot of space to put cars when there's a housing crisis. If you give some people the ability to downsize from 2 cars to 1 car or 1 car to 0 cars, some of that space can then be freed up for commerce, for economic development, and for people to live. There's financial as well. The AAA, American Automobile Association, this isn't some crazy transit talking point. AAA found last year that it costs about $10,700 to own a car, all in when you include gas, registration, taxes, road maintenance, all of that you pay into. I know the Boston Globe also found that the average Bostonian whether they own a car or not, they're contributing about $14,000. So it can really add up, and you know, a lot of people can watch their savings account just kind of vanquish when they have an unexpected car repair. And then also, the bus is completely free. Who here knew that GRTC is completely zero fare? Okay, cool, yeah. I figured I'm a good audience for that, but that is really nice. And also over half, I think it's now over 60% of people make under $50,000 a year household income that ride GRTC. Before we were zero fare, it only accounted for about 12% of the revenue. If we were some crazy New York subway where it was half, you know, that would be a different argument, but I think it's a lot to ask of people when they just really maybe not have a lot of money for their day-to-day lives. And that goes right into equity. Over the 90% of those on public assistance, they don't own a car, and you know, we just find it's kind of like.
Kelly wants to interject another statistic that RHA residents here in the city of Richmond, the average income is like a little bit over $11,000. So it's $10,000 to own a car in a year.
Right.
You can't eat.
Right.
Just throwing that out there.
Yes, we have talked to multiple people who either would have had to turn down jobs or had to walk 4 or 5 miles to get to their employment or home, and vice versa. And then obviously environmental, more people on the bus, less carbon emissions, and also less gasoline consumption for both, you know, climate and energy independence as well. Thank you, Sid. So who here knew that we had the very first electric streetcar system in the world? Yes, okay, cool. Well, not that I'm saying anything groundbreaking to y'all, but you know, at one point we were a world leader in public transportation. You can see this pretty map on page 5 in the report and on the map, or on the screens. You know, we had quite a significant network, and some of our current bus lines follow the streetcar almost perfectly. And we actually burned it to the ground in 1949. You can see some streetcar tracks. I know when they repaved Main Street last winter, when they dug up the top asphalt, the streetcar tracks were still there. And so we're kind of using that as a blueprint to say, hey, we were the best. And so there is you know, I think that's a big motivator for saying we can do a whole lot better and return to that, strive to return to that one day. So our first pillar is more buses, more places, and this is gonna kind of focus on 3 connected things. The first is the 2040 transit vision. This is particularly fitting to present it in Plan RVA's office because this is based on their 2040 vision plan that we've adapted. The second point is now becoming less and less true by the day. There was a crazy bus operator shortage. GRTC had to cut service and then they couldn't even run the service. That was cut. That has changed, and I'll do a little bit more about that. And then also access to jobs. And you know, America is a place where we talk about economic and upward mobility, but if you have no physical way to get to a job that can better your life, you know, you're kind of SOL. So now we're gonna play the first of 2 videos. The first is from Pamela, and it's about job access. Maybe.
My name is Pamela Hurd Blake. It's hard for me to find bus routes to go to jobs I'm applying for because I have been offered jobs, but I'm not able to go to them because the bus routes don't go to them, such as Ashland or Glen Allen or further out.
My name is Donna Scott. I take the 1A. Oh, my story. Listen, baby, I don't understand. But we can't go to Chesterfield. I don't understand at the evening time when I'm trying to get home at 6 or 7, I gotta wait 30 minutes for the next bus. This don't make no sense.
Yeah, so if there's anything you take from this report, I would kind of take Donna's mantra for like, this doesn't make any sense. The 1A, for those who don't know, it goes from downtown across the Mayo Bridge down Hull Street and then terminates just beyond the city line in Midlothian. And so when we're talking about this stuff, it's not just us, we hear this time and time again that people don't wanna wait 30 minutes, much less an hour for a bus. And they just wanna be able to go across the region just like anybody else. Our lives don't stop at jurisdictional boundaries, so why should theirs? And so the 2040 Transit Vision, this is on page 8. So we are looking for 15-minute service to 10 separate corridors in many of the localities of Plan RVA, and that's from the airport, Glen Allen, Easton, Mechanicsville, Midlothian, either Chester or Petersburg, Brander Mill, Short Pump, Glen Allen, etc. And you guys, we have this very fun stylized subway map, just to kind of create a fun vision. Ideally, these would all be bus rapid transits, which is unofficially I call it the fancy bus, and so that is the Pulse is the bus rapid transit. So you have level boarding, frequency, their own lane, and a few other amenities that make it a higher standard. And so to look at it more geographically, this is the 2040 Transit Vision. In red are all of the current routes, and then in green is a geographically accurate representation of where we would love, let's go back one slide, where we would love to see transit by 2040 at the 15-minute service level, and obviously incremental steps, which is happening and we're excited about. But if we go to the next slide, that progress is not realized. As you can see, in the city core, the Pulse is in turquoise and all of the 15-minute lines are in green. We're happy with that. That's what we consider the benchmark for frequent transit, where you don't have to think about a timetable. You can just kind of show up. If you guys have ever ridden like the New York or DC subway, you can show up and just get on, and that's that, versus having to wait for 12:52 p.m. and if you miss it, God help you. And so, obviously we don't expect this to be overnight. It's a process, a public process, and an educational and advocacy process as well. And thankfully, this map is incorrect. The Cary main bus, which is just below the Pulse, in the city that has returned to 15-minute service as of the beginning of the month. So there are a couple things that are wrong in this report because things actually got better since we published it in the spring. And then we can also look at population density. Richmond is more urban, and so it makes sense that they're gonna have a majority of the bus routes, but there are also pockets of pretty dense places in Chesterfield and Henrico that have no transit service at all. And we're hoping that we want to give everybody where the land use and density makes sense the ability to ride a bus. So, next slide. This is the other big slide that is thankfully one back. Yeah. The bus operator shortage as part of the national labor shortage that affected GRTC hugely. They're still running cut service from about 2021. And GRTC actually did a historic wage increase. They used to be paying very, very little for CDL drivers. And oftentimes people even would get their license at GRTC and jump ship as soon as they could. But as you can see, before April 9th, 2023, the very first line of the chart, GRTC was paying about $17.40. In April, they bumped that all the way almost to $25 starting pay. And the numbers have been crazy. They went from a low of about 210 operators when they needed about 280. And now they're in the mid 270s with a whopping 75 in training. So we're really happy that GRTC has been, recognized that, been competitive, and the bus operators are not called drivers, they're called operators because primarily they have a customer service job. They are helping people with the bus. If somebody comes on with a wheelchair, ask questions on how to get to a certain part of town, the bus operator is not only operating the bus, but helping them as well. And so they are fully on track to not only restore service. This isn't a promise, but all the signs point to in January, service will be not only fully restored, but expanded.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Do you have any stats on the schools being able to find drivers?
Yeah. No, because we're just focused on, I'm so curious on if it's just
the same group of people, okay, now they're all here, and then the
Right.
schools now can't find the bus drivers. I know a lot of localities are dealing with that too.
Yeah, I guess it's all competition at the end of the day, but it doesn't have to be.
Like, we need a
Zero-sum.
long-term regional strategy on encouraging and training people
Yes.
to go into CDL.
Yes, we have been working with GRTC and Chesterfield Supervisor Mark Miller, who's also an adjunct at Brightpoint, and they are brainstorming a way to create a Brightpoint CDL to GRTC pipeline. So yes, I get that in the immediate, it can be a zero-sum game, but as the market adjusts and people realize that there's better paying jobs, that, it'll be a win-win for everybody. Yes, question.
I'll ask you a question. I live in Chesterfield County. Chesterfield County owns 50% of GRTC.
Yes,
What I don't understand is I live in Mosley.
yes.
So I called a few months ago and asked them if they could come over and pick me up. They said, no, you live too far out. And they said you could come in to a certain place and then catch the bus. Well, if I'm gonna do it that way, I just will come all the way.
Right,
I'm not very happy with it.
right.
And I've been on this committee for about 50 years. And I can tell you, I don't see, if Chesterfield owns 50% of it, they ought to be covering 50% of it. And I realize the county has to put up money. But I
Yes.
talked with the supervisors and they having problems.
Right, well, we certainly welcome more of your energy from Chesterfield. We don't always get that from the county. Chesterfield, as far as I understand, has always been historically resistant towards public transportation, especially connecting to the city of Richmond. That is changing a little bit. They're aiming to this doesn't help you per se, but they are starting to, in January, there should be new service out to the Walmart on Midlothian, an extension of that 1A bus
My
line.
response to you is if Chesterfield owns 50% of it, they should serve 50% of Chesterfield.
I understand. I think, I do not live in the county. I think overall, from what I understand, the populace of Chesterfield does not want to pay for that much bus service. So we want that to change. I mean, we want to talk to people and demonstrate. We're certainly on your side, and we are not GRTC. Chesterfield can be a tough egg to crack sometimes, and we're getting there. We're happy they put the 3B down Richmond Highway and Jeff Davis to Brightpoint. But it can be a bit slow
That
going.
may be a point about the microtransit, that we could get
Right.
some input from people about where their point of origin is and, what their destination is. That's the kind of question we should put out to
Yes.
citizens.
But, I fully expect our transit ambassadors, even though they'll be a bit chilly in January, to go out and canvass people on the Midlothian corridor and just hear what people think, that this is now here, it's operating, it's gonna be every 30 minutes, which isn't ideal, but reasonable, and go from there. And if we can take that data, and if it looks good and the riders are happy, we have a much stronger argument putting more service down Hull Street to Mosley, to closer to where you are.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
It has down here for the Lego factory and also Amazon distribution, none and none-planned, any kind of service to that. In Newcastle, we're gonna have situations where we're gonna need a lot of employees.
Yeah.
And have you talked to those employees about their situation, or are they very happy driving into work?
It's a great question. We certainly haven't talked to the Lego factory's
Well, of
employees
course,
because they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
exist.
There's gonna be a Lego factory someplace that has a very similar situation.
Right, I
It's not
don't know as
gonna
a 2 full-time staff nonprofit, we have that kind of budget.
Okay.
The
I understand.
The Amazon facility sounded interesting. We
Yeah.
did a women's transportation seminar a few years back, did a tour at Amazon. Asked the
really?
manager, is there interest in that? And yes, there was, but nothing materialized.
It is fascinating because I learned when, they're Danish, I think, Lego, when they came down there, they make sure they offset all of their carbon. And it's very fascinating, if only from that perspective, that then they're just gonna have a bunch of people drive down 95 and 295. As far as Amazon, I don't know beyond if Amazon would let us go to their parking lot and talk to people at the beginning and end of the shift. They might not want to be bothered, but I think that's a great idea and I can bring it up to Faith. So thank you, yes.
I would suggest, if you'd like, so we have a program using Virginia Transit Association funds that's giving rides to work to people that are getting these jobs outside of the transit shed. I would welcome you to at any point want to give those people interviews of why they're unable to take transit to where they're going.
That
You know,
would be, yes.
of like, here's people's real voices of, you know. And one of the people that works on that program calls me all the time and says, you know, do we have more slots? Because I got 25 jobs at this Food Lion warehouse, paying $25 an hour, none of my people can get there. You know, that really is like I have people that if you wanted to do that as an interview series, I could connect you with.
We would love that, yes, thank you so much. So, yeah, if you don't mind going to the next slide, thank you. So before we, okay, I guess it's a different order, that's fine. This is a geographic representation, a heat map of sorts, the census and the Center for Economic, can't remember the name. The census in partnership with another governmental agency does publish all jobs at the address level, so we turned that into a heat map and mapped it over. Our vision plan and GRDC's current routes, it becomes very clear why they put the pulse in where they did. It's so job rich. And then you can see, for example, the short pump bus, which extends northwest from the pulse, you know, why that was so important, connecting so many job centers. But there are some, like Chesterfield Town Center, Johnston Willis, Memorial Regional, you know, where Green City will be, where the Lego factory will be, that, you know, these are gonna be, a lot of people are gonna be moving in and out of these areas, but they are really not able to without a car. Which is fine for some people. We're not sitting here saying nobody ever can drive in 30 or 50 years or whatever, but we wanna provide people options and not lock people in. And then on the next, yes, I see, yes. And so the previous page was just kind of looking at different selected job centers on how much transit there was or was not. Moving on to our second pillar on page 15 is dignified places to wait. And so who here has seen this bus stop at Willow Lawn? It's where, yes, and so this one is fully caught in what we call bus shelter bureaucracy. Henrico County, this is across from the Pulse to where you connect to the 19, which will get you farther out to Short Pump. It's one of the busiest stops in the system, and people have to more or less jaywalk across a 6-lane Broad Street, which is not a fun activity. And they do not have anywhere to sit. That's where the abandoned Hardee's is. And they did not want to relinquish any of their land for a bus shelter. There's not enough right-of-way for even a bench. And Henrico doesn't want to use eminent domain unless they extend the Pulse west. And so you kind of have this perfect storm of Henrico knows it's needed, GRTC knows it's needed, and just everything conspires to make it so these people are sitting on shopping carts, or there's a bunch of crepe myrtles. In the dead of summer, nobody waits at the bus stop, everybody waits on the crepe myrtles, trespassing the Hardee's, or that landlord who doesn't want them to put a bus shelter there. So that's just kind of some of the mess you get into. Unfortunately, it gets a little bit worse. But before that, we're gonna hear from 2 more bus riders, Earl and then Chris. You can just play them one after the other.
My name is Chris. I take the 1A, Midlothian and Hull Street. The bus picks me up right in front of my home, drops me off in front of my job, so there's no bus switching. The only thing about the bus stop is there are no shelters if it's raining or windy or whatever have you.
Yes, my name is Earl Martin. I catch the 1 southbound bus, and up on Walmart on Brook Road, Chamberlain and Brook Road, there's no stop with the cover thing, the shelter, and a bench. It used to be a bench there, they took it out. And people actually bring their carts up to Walmart, turn it over, and sit on it. And that doesn't look good. You know, people ride by and see carts laying on the ground, and people got used to carts to the shopping. Maybe a little more shelter and bench would be good.
right, so, and as far as looking at the data, yes, you can go to the next slide with the chart. So only 5% of GRTC stops have shelters, an additional 20% have benches. So 3 out of every 4 stops, you have a pole in the ground, and you might be in a drainage ditch or what have you. GRTC, the board did approve a essential transit infrastructure plan, or ETI. They did choose the aspirational goal, since this report was published, to drastically increase the number of shelters and benches to 75% by 2027. However, there's a lot of political reality that's going to make that very challenging. The money isn't all secured, much less there to begin with, and they have some money. And then also, we have learned that it is an incredibly insane process to get a bus shelter installed on VDOT's right-of-way. So, we're certainly pushing, and we want to hold GRTC accountable, but in many ways, they don't hold the power, they don't hold the purse strings. And so they often can get a disproportionate amount of the blame for what they're trying to do. But as far as the bus shelter bureaucracy goes, we have learned that installing bus shelters is a convoluted mess. I could spend an entire hour going over how insane it is. The process can take over 30 months. Henrico County, when they extended the 19 to short pump, bought 12 new bus shelters in 2018. 11 or 10 of them are still sitting there to this day because of this insane process. Somehow in the Code of Virginia, bus shelters get counted as housing. And then also, nobody ever wrote down, arguably on purpose, how to install a bus shelter on VDOT's right of way. And so that not only affects big agencies like GRTC, but it particularly harms rural transit agencies. I know Blackstone Transit has had a really hard time because they just don't have the engineers and the architects and the professionals to navigate this insane process with permitting. And if you get a bus shelter design approved, anybody in the state can use that for 1 year. But if you want to install 1 year later the exact same model of bus shelter, you have to go through another 6-month approval process to get that done. I mean, it is, and then all of a sudden, if you put a solar light on the bus shelter, it's now a different model and has to go through that. And this has got caught in this incredible bureaucracy between the Virginia Department of General Services and VDOT. DGS in the Code of Virginia does have to sign off on it. They have decided to make this incredibly complex process. And then as far as I understand, I'm not the professional engineer in the room, so just bear with me a bit. VDOT didn't really know this was a problem because not many people could make it through the gauntlet far enough to even get to the VDOT part of engineering and actually permitting the bus stop itself. We are working with the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, who are the point people in understanding just the process in general, and we're trying to raise awareness. We do have, I know the Virginia Transit Association is helping as well, and we have found a patron in the House, Delegate McQuinn. Delegate Coiner is interested in supporting, and then in the Senate, Senator Hashmi as well is interested in trying to find some streamlining process, and we're hoping it'll be a bipartisan bill. You have, on the liberal side, transit, equity, carbon, all of that, and on the, conservative side, this is really unnecessary bureaucracy, and, there is ample ways to clean it up and still have the bus shelters be to a safe, high standard. If you guys ever want to talk about this more in depth or want more information, I'm happy to. This is just opening the surface. As far as our third pillar, elevating writers' voices, I don't know if you guys see Sarah Wissaker right in the middle there, canvassing on Broad Street. So this is kind of the bread and butter of our organization, is going out to mostly busy bus stops and talking to people, getting their thoughts. Sometimes we might have a specific campaign like Zero Fare. Sometimes we're just kind of open-ended, and sometimes maybe GRTC has a survey and we want to give people the ability to, 1, know about it, and 2, fill it out. And so now we'll hear from our 5th and 6th bus riders, Alyssa and Anthony.
My name is Alyssa. The free fare has affected me tremendously, honestly, because once again, I take either the 79 or the 76 to get back to where I'm living. And it's kind of hard because right now I'm staying in a shelter and I don't have like that type of money to be paying for bus fare. So it's good that they have the free fare because it make it easier for me. I wouldn't be able to get to work if it wasn't for the free fare because I can't afford Ubers or Lyfts. So it affected me in the best way possible. I hope they keep going.
My name is Anthony Ford. I catch the Holland Park bus, the Northside bus, and the Chamberlain bus on a regular. I have a car, but I catch the bus because it's convenient, because I can't find a parking space. However, what my concern is that the GRTC don't inform the public that when they change routes, change bus routes, and change bus destinations, they should contact the Channel 6 news outlet, media outlet, and to inform the public so we can be aware of it, so that when they go to work in the morning or get off in the afternoon, they know which stop their bus route will be on. And so basically, that's all my concern is that they should inform the public when they change bus routes, when they change bus stops, and that will help the public be more well informed.
So Anthony, Sarah told me this because she was the one that talked to Anthony, I think. But he was, I think, in a pretty bad mood, and you can see he's at a temporary stop, so he was a little frazzled trying to find where the heck he was supposed to catch a bus. But Anthony ended up joining one of our programs, Mobility University. That is a 5-week course. We are about to finish up our 3rd cohort, where we educate bus riders on how to advocate for better public transportation. Anthony ended up graduating our 2nd cohort. So we were really happy to foster that relationship. Yes, go Anthony. Zero fare is kind of the big talking point that falls under this. When we talk to bus riders, I mean, the split is like 90-10 or 95-5. People are so grateful and happy for zero fare. You know, we really believe, you know, there's an equitable, you know, you should be able to get around town and not have $1.50 bus fare truly be the barrier to that. You know, it's efficient, you know, for people who do have means. You don't have to wait for people to fumble with their change. Everybody just, like a subway, gets on or gets off, and it saves everybody time. And we believe that it's sustainable. Zero fare does increase ridership, and which in turn increases state funding as part of their funding formula. Ridership is a part of that. And then Richmond is one of the only, or GRTC is one of the only agencies that has surpassed their pre-pandemic ridership. And they did that with drastically cut service over a year ago. So we're fully for zero fare. It's currently guaranteed through June of 2024. There is state money through 2025 contingent on a local match, which we think is coming, but that will be for the fall and winter to decide. I think Lisa was a big part in the state grant part of negotiating, so thank you. As far as who rides the bus, this data, GRTC I think just came out with their updated stats, but this is from 2019, and it still tells the overall picture. 64% of people who ride are African American, people Black. You have people of all ages riding, majority women, education across the spectrum. 86% of people riding are working or retired. Over half of people make under $25,000 a year household, and you know that goes back to Kelly's point. And people ride it primarily to work, but for all sorts of things. I do know the trip purpose has changed. A lot more people will ride it for just a few blocks that they wouldn't have otherwise. So you know it seems like a win-win to give people those extra options. And then as far as not too much to talk about. GRTC is when they redesigned it in 2018 and coinciding with the Pulse, it was redesigned for equity, which is one of the reasons our ridership has been so resilient in the pandemic. However, you know, the suburbanization of poverty is a thing, and so you have people who are being pushed out to the urban periphery who don't have a lot of services per se. And we just want people when they're, you know, whether it be fixed route or microtransit or what have you, we don't want people to be truly isolated in miles from any sort of services that can help them get what they need and get back on their feet. As far as our policy asks, the very first one on here is basically done in the bus operator shortage. We want service restored and expanded as a result of that. We want, as far as dignified places to wait, we want this crazy bus shelter bureaucracy to be done with and have it be reasonable. And we want GRTC to be able to execute their ETI plan with help from all the localities in the state. We want, as the riders want, we want zero fare to be permanent, and we want to make sure that there is ample bus rider input for decision making. And then this is the final chart I leave. I know I've been talking for quite a while, so thanks for bearing with me. We just want to highlight transit funding per capita. These are the 9 metros, 4 above, 4 below in Richmond, that are most similar in metro population. And we went through Federal Transit Administration data, and Richmond does not spend a lot of money per person, coming in 8th out of 9, only beating Oklahoma City. You know, sure, it'd be great for us to be Salt Lake one day, but even to be New Orleans or Milwaukee, you know, just, you know, imagine what a transformative it would be if we were able to come to some of our peer metros in funding. So that's all I have. I won't worry about this slide. So ride the bus. If you guys want, you can talk to me to adopt a bus stop. It's kind of like adopt a highway. Plan RVA, I think, just did it. If you have a business, it's also free advertising. We're cool with that. We would love if, you know, tell your friends to donate to us, and if you ride the bus and want to share your story, you can call that phone number. But thank you so much. We really appreciated the opportunity to speak here, and are there any questions?
What's the relationship between RVA Rapid Transit and GTRC? It's not clear, then you were presenting data like you were GTRC, but you're not.
Right.
I think that may have confused Herb a little bit, because he thought you were GRTC and was offering comments. So what is RVA Rapid Transit relative to GTRC?
So we are independent from GRTC. However, we have a very strong relationship. Our executive director has a direct line to their CEO, and I can email them whether I know them or not and get a very thorough and transparent answer. GRTC, I think they really appreciate us because we can kind of advocate so that they can do a better job on what they're doing, because a lot of times they are hamstrung, and because they are so intertwined with the city and the state, they can't speak up or be too vocal. However, at the same time, you know, we do want to highlight that the ETI plan is like, hey, y'all passed this, and it doesn't seem like they're getting up to speed, so we want to like make sure that they are doing what they promised the public. That's one of the reasons we're so bent for zero fares. GRTC did have announcements on the bus saying this was through 2025, and so we don't want to break the riders' trust.
I guess that means you're a nonprofit
We're a
advocacy
501,
organization?
more generally, I'm so sorry, we're a 501c3, yeah, nonprofit, yes. All right, well,
I just have
yes.
a comment to make. I actually, when I was vice president for the Urban Studies Student Association for my, because I'm a VCU student, I'm a senior for the Urban Studies Student Association, for urban planning at VCU. I actually went to one of their meetings, and it was actually very eye-opening because I'm already kind of informed on like housing and transportation in urban cities a little bit, but just even hearing from like the open forum, from what people had to say about Richmond, it was just very nice to hear on what y'all had to say back in like the spring, so I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Awesome, well, thank you guys so much, I was really happy to present that.
Cool, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Next on the agenda, we have a quick discussion on rotation of meeting sites.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. This was added to the agenda at the request of one of our members, and the point was to offer that perhaps you know, the committee would benefit from rotating the meeting from time to time. But as Janice and I discussed this morning, there are some logistical issues associated with moving it. One of them being, you know, ordering lunches, having them delivered, and the big one being the technology, because we are, as everybody can see, you know, live streaming this right now, and we're set up and well equipped to do that here. We can do it in other sites remotely, but it does require a lot more advanced work, usually going out and scouting the site out, determining what's available in terms of their IT infrastructure and testing and so forth. So I'm not saying that this is something that we should dismiss, but you know, I did want to bring it forward at the request of the member. I think it was Mr. Richwine that offered this, but unfortunately he's left. So I don't know. Janice, is there anything that you wanted to say about?
No, just that it's logistically difficult for staff to set up to do live streaming, and being a public entity, our meetings are open to the public. We have to make them available to the public. And in our interim period, when we were moving here from our old office location, we had to have some meetings off-site, and it actually turned out to be pretty much of a nightmare because IT departments operate differently. They use different systems that we're not familiar with. We don't have the correct software for. So it basically requires pretty much rental agreements. There are insurance requirements that have to be met. We have to, have our finance manager go through making sure we have all the insurance requirements met. We have to meet with the IT department. It's a lot more than, it sounds great to just say, let's, meet somewhere else. That'd be great to go around the different areas or organizations in the region. But it's a pretty hefty undertaking.
Mike Scott.
Has anybody thought about the community rooms of the public libraries all over the region? That might be the exact resource we're looking for.
Right.
I would suggest that if you were going to do it, Janice, to save you effort, make it at one of the partners' offices who has administrative staff and an IT department that we don't have to contract with separately. You know what I mean? Like, I would say if I were you, I would say, if you want to do it somewhere else, you have to volunteer to coordinate the IT and the lunches and everything.
True.
I mean, that would be my suggestion, because I know that is a pain in the butt.
There's a couple of folks online.
All the more reason to have the listening sessions as the unofficial
That's what I was gonna
meetings.
suggest.
Yeah.
I think if we use this as a core and then do the listening sessions and go and meet people where they are, it would supplement this 6 meeting a year kind of commitment.
That's true. We have a comment from Tony Williams.
Hello, yes, good morning. Let me get myself on camera so I don't sound. I was gonna suggest, why don't we put this to a vote? I think there's an argument to make on either side of the issue, but it's nice to know where the meetings are every time. And you all at Plan RBA, your technical facilities are far superior to what a lot of our Senior Connections, we're doing pretty well with that type of technology, but we haven't gotten up to where you all are. And so I kind of lean on the side of having the meetings in one place so that we all know where they are. And if we can't, for instance, today I wasn't able to get there, but I was able to get there on screen, and so it doesn't really matter to me where the meeting is. But so that's just my 2 cents, and I haven't said anything for several meetings, so I thought I would offer that. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say as long as they remain accessible via online, participation and streaming, I think that's.
So Tony's suggestion was we put it to a vote. Do we want to do that? I don't know the procedure here.
Do we vote to discuss it more or not? Or we think?
There's no motion at this point.
Yeah.
I move for Janice and Plan RBA to come back next meeting with a list of possible places that have the capabilities that we need. The answer can be there's no other places.
Do you have a second to that motion?
I second that.
Tony seconds the motion.
Sorry, that was Andrew Bunn.
Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Andrew, tell me where you're representing, because I can't see you and I'm just trying to keep track.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I represent Senior Connections, the capital area agency
That's
on aging.
Tony speaking.
That's Tony, thank you. Thanks, Tony. Andrew, where are you?
Richmond
Okay.
City.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if that's the, it seems that that's the desire of the committee, then we can certainly come back with a report next meeting in
Well,
terms
there's
of potential
that's a
site.
motion, so we
Yeah,
have to
there's a
vote
motion,
on it,
yeah.
right?
Well, I'm assuming if the motion passes.
So we'll vote on the motion to have Plan RVA staff make a list of where else we could have these meetings. Although I think it would be useful too to know where we could have listening sessions.
Right.
Something like that. You could use the information. It's useful either way. Right. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I think that we could start off with it being some unofficial offerings for other meetings, not necessarily the official CTAC meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
What do you think?
we'll come back then. Thank you.
Now that Herbert's left, I guess I'm the senior most member here. Long ago, we didn't have lunch even when we met. So it was late afternoon. I never was paid to represent anybody. I had to take off time from my job to attend the meetings. And because it was at 3 o'clock, once the meeting was over, I just went home for the day. That may or may not work going forward, but we've done it in the past. There was a precedent for meeting in the afternoon, not even having lunch. So, and that might serve more the general public who, it's really hard. I know from my career working for the city to attend meetings that the city did not send me to. I had to take off vacation time, usually drive to work, otherwise I would have taken the bus to work. I had to arrange for parking during the day, get to my meeting and come back to the office and work the rest of the day with an automobile. So it was logistically problematic for me to attend lunchtime meetings that weren't part of my regular job responsibilities. So, and that may be something that we're all confronting if we try to engage the rest of the public.
I appreciate you coming and having lunch here and that, but what I don't understand is half this group isn't here that is listed as, that should be here. We can't even engage them. We're gonna engage the public. Let's see, do we pay people in Charles City to come to a meeting here? We pay somebody from Henrico to fill their position to come to a meeting here? I don't quite understand how we're gonna be doing that.
If it would be helpful to clarify the role of the committee in relation to the MPO's rules, because as far as I understand, and again, hi, I'm new. The members of this committee are from the greater membership of our locality representation on the policy boards. And so the localities, I believe, have a, what is the rule? What is the word I'm looking for in their role in the committees? Like a responsible appointee?
Right.
So they have a appointee, right,
Right.
that comes from there. And then in addition, our charter is essentially saying there are up to 12 at-large member organizations appointed by the MPO. And so that's a lot of the kind of
And a couple of these are new in
organizations
the
here.
past year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, they weren't even on.
Yeah, and so I think it's useful to separate what kind of participation we're looking for at the committee level and what we're allowed to do and required to do by the committee, and then what kind of public engagement we're looking for, because a little bit we're talking about them with the same voice, and I think there's relations, they're related to each other, but I think our public engagement could consist of things like listening sessions and getting out in the public more versus what is the responsibility of this committee to do. And so the location of the committee meetings and who gets to be here is already set. We only have but so flexibility based on our charter. So just a good reminder of what the difference is. Sarah?
Yeah, and do you think, I guess to respond to you, do you think with a better, like more outlined role that more people would participate? Because one of the issues that I've had, like I've been on the committee for some years, but for the first couple of years, I really didn't know what the point of this committee was, because we met and we had lunch and then we heard a presentation, which is all very lovely stuff, but I wasn't sure why there was a community transportation.
There's a number of our committees that are put together that are like that too.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the policy board of Plan RVA and I went maybe 6 years and still don't know exactly what was going on in that Plan RVA. And our current representative has said the same thing. But I was the appointed person for New Kent to be on that board. So I went.
Yep.
So what we're saying is these counties want to have no input into what our discussions are here.
Well,
Or they're just writing us off?
Well, this hasn't really been, like, Lisa did a lot of work before me, like, to kind of ask the question, what is the role of this committee? Because without answering that question, I think there is some, if you're from a locality, are you really gonna drive into Richmond to come to a meeting that happens every 2 months?
Or online.
Yeah.
They don't even have to drive in.
Yeah,
that's true.
Participating, you know?
Yeah, but even, like an online meeting that's a couple of hours long with a presentation or something, I mean, maybe they just don't, they don't see the point of that.
Maybe that defining would be the thing to do first.
Yeah, which is, I think,
I mean, I think that's what we were hoping to do
Right, that's good.
with page 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah.
And yes, it needs further steps, right? And so I think that is, I want to both have us all have shared accountability in that and also lean on the staff as infrastructure where that makes sense, is that we can make this be as strong or as weak as we want it to be. And so part of that is our responsibility to support you and hear what your feedback is and maybe have better communication streams of, like John said, hey, tell me what I need to share and give it to me simply. And then also for us deciding as a group, what do you care about that you can take back to your communities and do as it relates to these steps? And so I think we have to maybe have some of that conversation outside of just these meetings, and that's okay. And so I want to offer up myself for that, to say, like, if it's John, right? Other
Yes,
John?
John.
If other John on that side of the table says, Holly, I still don't understand how I fit here, then let's talk about it. That's okay.
We've got this long-range plan coming.
Yeah.
Right.
So another reason to reach out to these unrepresented localities and say, we want to hear your voice.
It's an opportunity
You
for
will
them.
want to have a voice. Therefore, please do whatever you need to do to identify individuals to serve on CTAC and bring it to their attention again. Because, for whatever reason, they have not gone to some of their citizenry and said, will you serve? And therefore, we continue to have these vacancies. And with no alternates, so there's no voice from those localities.
And to take that one step further, and you want them to be have a representative here at this meeting, because when this goes someplace, what we talk about means something?
Yeah.
Well, we have to make sure they understand that it means something when it gets to that next place. If it just doesn't mean anything, it doesn't
But
matter.
decision-making, on what this committee is going to do with this new committee
Right,
that's
right.
being formed to work on that is going to be more vibrant if we have more voices involved going into it.
Right.
Instead of just reactionary after it's done. Well, you didn't sample us, you didn't talk to us.
Exactly.
We wanted to.
So
Make
maybe
sure
to
you're
the
there.
earlier point about making sure that their input is shared back, right? So not just public input, but even our policy boards to say, hey, this is how it went to them, our expertise went to the policy board, and here's the decision that was made. Sid's raising his hand.
Yeah.
Andrew's online. Andrew has a question.
Andrew, you're online, you have a question?
Yes, I raised my hand during the comments about how difficult it can be to attend these meetings in person at this time and place. I don't have a car. I only get around by a bike. So that in combination with the time can make it very difficult to get here in person, which is why I'm not there today. So I was just adding my voice to that comment that perhaps an evening time, or not necessarily evening, but afternoon or evening or something like that, to make it easier to get there. Because to get here, I would have to leave at 11:30 to bike to the building if I have an 11 o'clock meeting or a 1 o'clock meeting or a 2 o'clock meeting. I have to have basically my entire calendar clear on a Thursday to come here in person.
That's helpful, and maybe also a good reminder of how great it is to have the virtual meeting option.
Yeah.
Yes, that too.
Well, all stuff to think about. Can we go over some future meeting topics?
Sure,
On Brady?
sure. On page 38, I think it is a list of future meeting topics, Madam Chair. And these are in no particular order. Please, if you have other topics you'd like me to add, I'd be glad to do so. I think I've added a few since our last meeting. I tentatively have scheduled for November discussion about affordable housing and transportation. That's not cast in stone. I have not started to make any preliminary contacts with regard to that subject. So if there's something else that's more pressing or of interest to the committee, then we can slot that for November. I have not calendared any other topics beyond the November meeting at this point.
Anyone have any suggestions?
You wanna add?
GRTC's expansion plan. So that would include the north, they have a whole table of it, but the north-south BRT, the Western Pulse, and then a smorgasbord of local service enhancements.
Got it, thank you.
You've got the Fall Line Trail, I think that's rising in relevance.
It is,
Maybe
it
that would
is.
come next,
Yeah,
after affordable housing.
I'm gonna note that one, Lisa. I think
Yeah.
that, as we're moving closer to actually construction, that it would be appropriate maybe sometime next year to have a presentation on that. And we might even want to discuss how that fits in with the larger picture of pedestrian and bicycle accommodations in our region and other plans.
I'd like to offer that, to John's point about what are we actually really doing with this committee, is that hopefully by then I'll have a little more time under my belt to create a little bit more structure for how we can, as a committee in that meeting, talk about what we want you to leave with and what your steps will be after that meeting, and then for the future plan, right? So I'll have hopefully a little more meat, but if you've got ideas between now and then, absolutely I would like to hear them. So please reach out to me, and I don't know the best way to communicate that to the rest of the committee. Janice, do you have thoughts on that?
No, we will, we generally do everything through email, and we have our newsletter, but yeah, we'll work that out. And
Okay, great.
see what the best method is going forward.
Yeah, I think the update of this public engagement plan really is a thread that runs through all of our meetings, because that will always be a topic. It's something that we need to do before the long-range transportation plan kicks off in April. So that'll definitely be on there. These other topics are educational and very helpful to have, but those will be supplementary to the work that Holly is doing with you all.
Yeah. Anyone with member comments, additional comments on the meeting right now?
Madam Chair, just wanted to point out, I happened to check the GRTC website this morning, and it's very timely that we've been talking about opportunities for engagement, expansion of public transit and so forth. And today posted on there is an opportunity for, there's a story map and a survey for the north-south BRT is on their website as of now. I put a few copies of the text from the website out in the main area, so you can pick one up, or if you just go to Ride GRTC and look under their press releases and public announcements, you can find this link. So here's an opportunity to provide some feedback.
I would add to that actually that we've had a couple of requests from partners as Plan RVA to share about input for their individual surveys, both from, I think, like the localities, and then also their, Phil had sent me something from the State Trails, right? It was at the State Trails office, had some input. So I think it's also Plan RVA's goal to be a little bit of a channel of communication about all things related to the worlds we care about, whether it's ours or it belongs to a partner. So look for that in our communication as well, just like the one that Ken suggested, yeah.
And finally, if anybody needs to have their parking validated, I can give you a sticker. You park in the deck here.
I was trying to explain to someone why I have to walk all the way around outside, almost 2 blocks from the parking deck to get in this building when they share a common wall. Anybody got a clue of why that is?
Because we have residential right around us and there is no direct access.
It's partially a security reason then.
Right.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that answer.
All right. We all out on the sidewalk in the rain too.
Imagine how the bus riders feel.
Good
tie-in. Well, if there are no additional comments, the next meeting is gonna be the 16th of November. I may not be here, I'm leaving the country that day, so. But I'm sure Ken and Holly will do a great job of running this meeting, and.
Well, we might have to bring back up a former CTAC chair to help us that. Lisa's not listening.
Yeah, and in between then, if you can think of anything more that you would like to see from this committee, or that you can do in your own role, or people that are missing, organizations you wanna see on here, let us know. Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
All right, second.